guys, we are so excited to have Jason Rainville here with us.
Oh my God!
You've done art for Magic the Gathering. You've done the cover of Xanathar's Guide to Everything, latest Dungeons and Dragons book.
That's fantastic.
Very exciting.
So exciting.
Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It's very exciting to talk to you guys.
Thank you, thank you. So, start off. How did you begin drawing for Magic the Gathering?
Well, I did a lot of work for like third-party publishers for Paizo. So basically, people who would do work for the Pathfinder system because it's an open license. Right Publishing, moving up through the ranks, finally got to Paizo, working for Pathfinder, and then one day I saw there was a call for concept artists for Wizards of the Coast, and so I, put it in. You have to apply to everything, even though it might not work out all the time. But yeah, they came back with saying, yeah, maybe not concept art, but Magic the Gathering, yeah. So that's essentially how I got in with it.
I'm so glad to hear that you did some work for Paizo, because I was looking through your site and I saw the Goblin and I was like, that's a Pathfinder Goblin right there.
Very distinctive. I love doing those goblins. I think for the ultimate campaign, I did the entire goblin section.
Really?
Yeah.
It's for the bestiary.
I like my goblin.
I am going to look at it.
Every single goblin is mine. Yeah.
That is, I like. Not to diss the dragons, I love it. Pathfinder is my favorite system. Yeah, absolutely.
So what is it like working for Magic the Gathering? Like, how do they express to you, these are the cards that we want, and how do you get the art?
It's stressful, but also really rewarding, because every card is like a little bit of a make or break. You want to put the best work out there. Everything you get from an art director, you get two things. You get a brief, and you get a style guide for the whole set. So a set like Kaladesh will have concept art for the buildings, the people, the creatures, everything like that, how certain things look. The brief is specific for each card. So a brief might say, this is the size of the card, this is how much you're going to get, and here's where it is, who it is, what they're doing, and all that. So they can range from very specific, like Voldaren, the vampire, throwing a weighted cape at the viewer while he stabs with a rapier, to a very loose one like Cryptic Command, which was basically a female mage casts Cryptic Command at the viewer, and that was all I got for that. So sometimes you have a lot of room to play, and that works out for me because Cryptic Command is a very popular card. So yeah.
Does it come to play that sometimes they'll come back and be like, no, this isn't. You have to make changes to it, or yeah.
All the time. Even at the sketch stage, sometimes they'll say, "Can you redo all of your sketches and send something else in?" It happens to everybody. It happens every so often. I don't think I've ever had a card that's actively been said we'll delete this. This doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, I get revisions every so often. It's a thing you have to deal with as an artist.
Yeah.
Now, Magic the Gathering, people are literally staring down your artwork for hours at a time, and do those people ask questions about why you did something a certain way, or sort of details about it to get further in depth about your drawings?
That's cool.
Yeah, a lot of the time they have a real interest in the process.
Here's our famous pirate.
Visualize how a card comes to be. Really, for me, my answer for a lot of the questions is I always start out with pencil sketches at card size. So I think it's 2 by whatever inches. So that big, I do about 21, just as pencils, just to make sure that everything's working at that level. Because if I were to start making a picture big right off the bat, I could get lost in the details, and maybe it might not work at that small size. But
that's a good point.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I tried to adopt very early on.
I'm guessing that's a lot in common with panel comics from the Sunday comics and things like
that.
Yeah,
a little bit. It looks like that, except very boring and regimented. Because
yeah. 8 of the same Sunday comic. It's really efficient, and it's fantastic.
Do you have a particular card that you've drawn that you think really resonates with you for any reason?
I think my favorite, and some of the fans' favorite, is Oracle of Dust. This was an Eldrazi, I'm not sure what lineage it's from, but one of the Eldrazi, he's sitting on a beach and he looks contemplative as he's holding a pile of dust in his hand. As littered around him are the bodies of these Zendikari warriors, their heads partially turned to dust. And the brief is really what sold it for me, because at the very end it says, utterly alien, curious. So I really love Zendikar because it was such a horror type set, but it was in broad daylight, something you could just stumble upon while walking around and see there's a horrible monster that's just dusted these people's heads. It was a really fun thing to explore, especially in that card. So yeah, Oracle of Dust is probably my favorite.
Now, you were telling us earlier a fun story about yourself when you meet people, is that while you're a brilliant artist for the cards, you're not necessarily a strong Magic player. Does that come into play a lot? Like, what's the polite way to say that?
Yeah, strong Magic player is a little bit of an understatement. I only just received in the mail from Wizards of the Coast a starter set to learn how to play Magic. Because I think someone at the company got tired of me complaining on Twitter, like, yeah, I don't know anything about this game. So over the holidays, my uncle and I, we sort of learned how to play Magic together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, early on when I was doing artwork for fans who would contact me for certain things, one of them asked, could I have a token? And I said, that's great. What's a token? So he had to explain me, a contract hire for Wizard of the Coast, what a token was and how to do it. So, yeah, a little embarrassing sometimes. It's a funny story, yeah.
Who won? You or your uncle?
I can't remember. Probably not.
So how does the card art Magic the Gathering translate to doing the cover for this D&D book?
That's a fun story because one of the art directors, Cynthia Shepard, I like to think of my friend too because we shared a client before Magic the Gathering. We talked about Magic the Gathering art together when we were working on cards. She's an art director now, and I had done a piece, Jade Light Ranger, and I put a lot of effort into the merfolk's fins and such. And one of the D&D art directors came down and asked her, do you have anyone who does fish well? And of course, Xanathar on his cover has to feature his little fish buddies. So yeah, that's essentially how I got the job for that, by putting in a little bit more effort into a card that, may or may not see play, had a nice reward for it. So.
Now, you told us a really interesting story with this cover that a lot of people don't know. We think it's one of our favorite parts about this now is the back, I guess you said, eh? Yeah, like, why don't you explain what that is?
Yes. Xanathar's tentacles, I don't know if you can open up the whole thing so it shows as a tableau.
Can I, Tim? Yeah, this is Tim's book.
Oh, okay, yeah, please, be gentle. His tentacles are pointing to the lectern there with a receipt for fish food in the D&D language.
That's not a magical spell, that's
No.
not plans to take over a town, this is fish food.
This is a very candid view into Xanathar's life.
You know what I like about it is he's a beholder, but he still knows enough to take care of his pets. I think that's very important.
But what I like about that is when you're talking to me about, here's a very fleshed out reality of what it is, and I like that in the art, you're talking about that, how here's a very specific brief of what it is. It really brings to life a lot of the image, I would think. Like that, like I enjoyed that image before, but now that I was buying fish food, it came alive even more, right? Yeah. And I think that's amazing.
There's a bit more lore and a bit more going on, some story behind this.
Absolutely.
Well, what do you think, just in your mind, do you think when you approach an art, how much do you consider, like, even in the pictures you draw, not for Magic Gathering or Wizards of the Coast, how much does the story come into play? Like, did you write a story for this guy before?
I didn't exactly write a story for that. That was very brief heavy too. But it's funny you mention that because narrative is a huge part of what I love in art. I love making a story on the page. So, some people might discover something in the reaction to that. I love character work and just making a story out of people's emotions. And this, of course, with a big, huge grin, was a lot of fun to work with. So yeah.
He's the most cheerful beholder I've ever seen.
That's right. He's happy.
Yeah, all those jewels.
Yeah, that's true.
Now you said you obviously are involved in Magic and Dungeons and Dragons. You have other nerdy artistic pursuits. What else have you dipped your pen in, if I can use the expression?
Aside from art, I am actually in a role-playing game right now.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I'm in a game of Lords of Gossamer and Shadow. It's actually another game that I worked on. It's print on demand. It's from Wright Publishing, and I did most of the art from it. When I looked at the manuscript, I loved it because it's a diceless system, which opened it up to a lot of different things that as a GM or as a player you can do. So you could fudge things a little bit this way to make room for narrative, or if you really wanted to do that really cool thing, if you can convince the GM to do that, then just go for it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jason. We appreciate your time, and stay with us after the break for more Talk Nerdy.
Alright, here we go, Jake. I got famous Jason Rainville in my house. I tell you.